Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. This tutorial is one in a new series on rescuing problem images, and today I'm using Photoshop. Before we have a look and see the process that we're going to go through, let's have a look and see the images that we're going to be working with. This over here is the original image which was shot in Rome, and it's quite a pleasing image until you have a look at it and realize that it's just horribly out of focus. So this would be typically an image that I would discard. But what I did in Lightroom was just square it up a little bit and crop it so that we have this basic image. And what I'm going to show you is how you can convert this image into this one. It's part of a series of having a look at the kind of images that typically you would just discard because there really is no saving of the basic image. But with a little bit of imagination and a little bit of Photoshop know-how, you can turn this into this. So I'm going to close the original right now because you can crop and resize an image yourself, but we're going to have a look at how this is going to be done. Now the process is going to be visible here through the layers in the original image, so let's have a look at them first. We're going to start with the original image. I'm going to clean up the background so that I'm left with just blue around the statue. Then we're going to use an emboss filter, and that emboss filter is going to gather out some of the detail, some of the edge detail in this image, and we can use it to build back some of the missing detail from the original. So we can use it to sort of almost sharpen the image. Then we're going to flatten the image and apply an oil paint filter to it, and that's what's going to give us this really nice character. And you can see that it's actually brought out some detail that was missing from the original. This looks a whole lot better than the original image, and it really is just an oil painting filter. Then we're going to boost the hue saturation. In fact, we're going to adjust it a little bit to make her robe a sort of aqua green color instead of blue. Then I'm going to add a photo filter that's going to add some really nice color into the rest of the image, and we'll finish off with a couple of curves layers, one of which is going to darken the edges of the image and the other one is actually going to lighten the subject. So let's have a look and see how we would do this. I'm just going to close this down and let's start with the image that we have. And the first thing I'm going to do is clean it up. One of the tools I like to clean up with is the Spot Healing Brush tool because it does a lot of the work for me. I'm going to try and get rid of some of this detail that is suggesting that she is in a box and just give her a little bit more flatter detail around her. Now, I'm going to try and do this relatively quickly, and I'm not really too worried about what it looks like as long as it doesn't look like a box by the time I've finished. I'm just going to drag over these areas and just try and flatten out some of the detail that we don't want. And once I've done the worst of this, then I'm going to start working with a different tool. I'm going to use the patch tool and I'm going to set it to content aware. And what this is going to let me do is to select around various areas of the image that I want to remove and just drag the shape over areas that I can use to fix the missing color. So again, let's just drag in here to get this sort of piece of image. Let's go and find a piece of the image we can use to fix it with and just drag and drop it into position. Now I can just do that in every area of the image that needs a little bit of help. I want to get rid of the greenery down here, so again I'll grab hold of it and use some of this blue color to get rid of it. I want to keep the foot of the statue, so this sort of statuey bit at the bottom, I do want to keep that, so I'm not going to remove that because I want to give her something to stand on. But again, I can just continue to remove little bits, and then I can come back in here with the Spot Healing Brush tool and just finish off any extra missing elements. So I just want to grab a little bit of the detail here around her headdress to remove. Let's just go and get that. Okay, before we continue. Now one extra thing I want to do before I finish up is that she has a wire running across her feet here, so I'm going to use again the Spot Healing Brush tool. I'm going to make it quite small I'm going to click at the beginning of the problem and I'm going to shift click on the end. What that does is paints a line through the image, and that is now all fixed using that tool. Just seen a couple of other little areas that I want to fix, so I'm going to use the clone stamp tool here to just sample a piece of the image and just paint in anything that I particularly want to paint in. So really I'm just using a range of tools just depending on what tool is going to be the best for the area I'm trying to fix. So I'm going to call that good for now. Now that we've got her fixed, we can duplicate this background layer by right-clicking and choose Duplicate Layer. That's going to give me a second version of her, and we're going to apply the emboss filter. So I'm going to choose Filter and then Stylize and Emboss. What this does is it gives us a sort of embossed effect, and what we're looking to do is to find some of that edge detail. You'll find the larger the value here, the more distorted it becomes. So we really want quite a small value for height, and we'll just play around with the amount to give us the detail that we want to get back in her dress. So once we've got that, I'll just click OK. And I'm going to apply that in the overlay blend mode because that's a really good one for adding some contrast detail back into the image. So I'll choose overlay. Now right now it's not doing a lot for the image, and the problem is that this emboss layer is just grey. If we could make it black and white, life would be a whole lot better. So I'm going to target this emboss layer, and I'm going to choose Image Adjustments, and I'm just going to use Levels. Now Levels is a bit of a ham-fisted sort of tool, but it's going to work just perfectly all right here, because what I want to do is to darken this layer. So I'm going to drag to the right to darken it, and you can see how we're getting some detail back in the image, and it actually is just a little bit sharper than it was before. I'll click OK. This is the before and this is the after, and you can see how that emboss filter has actually helped us get some missing detail back into the image. If we're happy with this, we could dial down the effect if we want to a little bit, but once we're happy with this, we can now make a composite of this. So what I'm effectively going to do is flatten this image by holding Control Alt Shift and the letter E. That's Command Option Shift E on the Mac. And now we're ready for our oil paint filter. The oil paint filter is here under Filter, Oil Paint. Now we could create a smart object of this layer, but I'm just going to go straight into the oil paint filter because really what we're looking for here is just a smoothing effect, and I think we can get a pretty good idea as to what we're getting just by looking at this dialog. Now the stylization, I would take it to 10 and then take it back to 0 or 0.1 just to see what sort of effect I'm getting, and I settled for something around about the higher level, so I'll get this sort of smoothing effect on the statue. Cleanliness, again, I'm going to experiment with low values and really high values, and again what I want here is a kind of high value. Scale, again, experiment with various options here, but scale's not really having a lot of effect. Bristle detail, this will give us again not a lot of difference in effect, so I'm just going to settle for a low value. Again, angular directions, another one of those options that's not going to have a lot of effect on this image, so I'm just going to leave it where it is. And shine, I certainly don't want to use shine because I don't want to get this effect. I want sort of 0 on shine because I want this smoothing effect, this sort of really beautiful patterning in the fabric of her dress, but without getting a lot of shine. So I'm just going to play around here with these values to see if I can get just a little bit of detail where I want it. You can see that the hands are coming up really, really nicely here. And when I'm happy, I'll just click OK. And that's pretty much the effect that we're looking for. And now it's just a case of fine-tuning it. And I'm going to use adjustment layers to do this. Layer, new adjustment layer. I'm going to start with a hue saturation because this allows me to boost the saturation or alter the color in the image. And what I'm going to do is start with the blue channel. because the blue channel is giving us these blue colors in her dress, and I want to move them into the sort of aqua area, so I want to get a little bit more yellow in them. So I'm going to take the blues out there, and then I'm going to take the cyans in the same direction, because both blue and cyan are contributing to the outfit that she is wearing here. And then I'm going to the master channel. I'm just going to boost the saturation a little bit in the master channel so that everything is a little bit more saturated than it was. Now that we've done that, I'm going to use a photo filter. This is a way of getting some color into an image. I'm going to do layer, new adjustment layer, and photo filter. Now in days gone by, these would be filters that you would add over the lens of your camera. So there are warming filters which sort of added yellowy colors, there are cooling filters which add blue color, and then there are a whole lot of different color filters that you could use. Now we could use yellow, or we could use even a sepia here. Either of those would give us a good tone, or we could just use a warming filter, and I think LBA is a pretty good one for this image. Just going to adjust the amount of the filter that I'm going to apply and click to close it. So you can see that these filters are giving us a difference in color, and I just really think that this is a more old-fashioned color, so I think a little bit of the yellow through there is really working well for this image, and then adding a little bit of yellow back. If we wanted to, we could actually go in here and paint out some of the effects. So I could, with a nice large soft brush, let's just make sure that the brush is nice and soft, targeting this layer, painting in black, I could remove some of the color from this if I wanted to, from her outfit. So that's removing some of the effect of that warming filter, but it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to paint it back in again, press X to change the colors around, and then just paint it back in. So I'm actually going to leave it, I think, in this image, but I am going to finish off with a couple of curves adjustment layers. So I'm going to choose layer, new adjustment layer, and curves. Now what curves allows me to do is to lighten or darken the image. So to start off with, I'm going to be looking at the outside edges, and I want to darken those. So I'm going to drag down on this curve and then drag up a little bit at the top, because I want to see how this darkened edge is going to look. Having done that, I'm going to target the layer mask because I want to get back some of the detail from the statue. I'm going to click on the elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to draw an oval over her. Now I haven't got it in the exact right position, but because I haven't let go of the mouse, I can hold the space bar and move it into position, and I can resize and reshape it and continue to move it until it's exactly where I want it to be. Having done that, what I want to do is I want to be able to see the lighter version of the image through this mask. So first of all, I'm going to feather it, and I'm just going to use select modify feather. It's not the world's best feature, but since we're only using a mask, it doesn't really matter. And I've already tested this image, and a 30 pixel radius feather is pretty good for this. It's a reasonable size image. So I'm just going to click OK. Now that's nicely feathered, and what I want to do is fill it with a color that will poke a hole through the darkening effect so we can see the layer below. And I'm going to do this by filling this shape with black. I'm going to make sure I have the mask targeted, and because black is my foreground color, I'll press Alt Backspace or Option Delete on the Mac. And you can see that the effect is that now we have a darker edge around the statue, but we haven't actually darkened the statue. In fact, I think the statue could be a little lighter. To do that, I'm just going to make a total duplicate of this curves layer. Right click and choose duplicate layer. Now I want this to be the exact opposite of this one, so to start off with, I'm going to target the mask and press Ctrl I to invert the mask. So now what we're going to do is adjust the curve. This time, instead of to make it darker, we're going to make it lighter. And that's going to affect only the area inside the circle, which is just going to lighten up the statue. So I'm going to lighten her a little bit And then if I wanted to, I could also paint on a little bit of this effect here. I want to be painting with white, so I'm going to press X to paint with white, and I'm just going to maybe bring back just a little bit of detail in her headdress. Here, I would do that by painting in black on this layer. Just a little bit of extra detail. If I bring in too much, then I can just paint it back out again. But let's have a look and see how far we've come with this effect. Basically what we've done is we've used the oil paint filter to convert an extremely out of focus and really totally discardable image into something a little bit more attractive, and certainly something that you would want to keep. We've done this using an emboss filter applied to the image in such a way that it actually sharpens the image. Then we flattened it and converted it into an oil painting using the oil painting filter. And then we added some color using hue saturation. We added in a little bit of a sort of aqua color and added a little more color into her using the saturation adjustment. We used a photo filter to actually add some yellow color. And then we finished off with a curves layer that darkened the edges, and then one that lightened the statue. So we've come from our before all the way through to our after, and now that's an image that I would want to keep. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more tutorials on this YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to this channel for more videos on Lightroom, Photoshop, Illustrator, and a whole lot more. You'll also find more content on my website at projectwoman.com.